If you want a tighter, more defined waistline, here's the truth that nobody says enough. You cannot spot reduce your belly fat on command, but you can train to reduce your total or overall body fat percentage, tighten your deep core muscles, and build the exact muscles that make your waist actually appear a lot slimmer, all at the same time. And when you actually do this right, your waist shrinks, but your curves still stay, and your glutes don't appear missing. Listen, I used to have this moment every single week where I'd think, I'm eating clean, I'm working out, and I'm doing everything right, but why does my waist look the same? And listen, you're not crazy for feeling super frustrated, especially if you're consistent, but the plan that you're actually following might literally be going against your physiology. I remember I was doing excessive cardio, which ultimately burned into my curves, and I remember dieting in a way that shuts or slows down your metabolism. So if you feel like you're working twice as hard for only half the results, it's probably because the strategy that you're using is working against your actual physiology. So listen, your waist is probably not changing because of 3 core mistakes. Your deep core muscles are probably very weak. Now think of your transverse abdominis as your internal corset. If it's underactive, your waist might appear a little bit wider even if there hasn't been excessive fat gain. Your calories might be excessively low, but your protein might be even lower. So instead of burning into that fat, your body is also burning into that muscle. And starting with your curves that you're trying to keep, you're probably not building the right shape as well. A small waist is a proportion game comprised of those strong glutes, round delts, and a tight core to give you that hourglass illusion. And when these 3 things were aligned, I started seeing results. Alright, so let's talk about how to actually fix this. Because when you actually understand this part, your whole fitness journey becomes a little bit clearer, calmer, and a little bit more predictable. Now, the method that I use is built on 3 pillars designed specifically for our physiology, hormones, recovery patterns, and even stress responses, instead of completely fighting against them constantly. Alright, pillar number 1, the metabolic rebuild. We need to start fixing the foundation before we start chasing the aesthetics. Most women try to lose fat from an extremely stressed, underfed, and under-recovered body. And here's how I was able to rebuild my metabolism so that my waist actually started responding. Alright, so focusing on nutrition, I ensured that I followed the balanced plate method. Half of my plate were of non-starchy vegetables, a quarter was my lean protein, another quarter was my complex carbs, and a thumb-size amount of healthy fats. This ultimately stabilized my blood sugar, reduced my cravings, and turned my metabolism back on. Number 2, this is something that I struggled with especially very early on in my journey when I had no idea about how important carbs were in terms of providing the energy that I needed for my workouts. So I started ensuring that I was getting or consuming enough carbs, especially during those heavy lifting days. And this is going to boost your training performance and target that fat loss without shrinking your curves. Because when your metabolism feels a little bit safer, your body finally releases that fat from the midsection. Alright, number 2 is the habit architecture. Now, most of us don't need more discipline, and most of us know exactly what we need to do, but we do need a better designed system. A lot of the time, your routine is simply incompatible with the life that you currently live. So this pillar is simply about turning your fitness into something that you can actually maintain, even on your busiest or most chaotic weeks. So just because you're extremely busy, that doesn't mean that we stop working out completely. So on those days that you're overwhelmed, we still try to get in at least 10 minutes of deep core work, at least 10 minutes of some glute work, and 10-minute walks at least. This is gonna keep that waist tight and your habits alive without complete burnout. Also, having a meal system is so important. So I had to ensure that I at least had a plug-and-play meal planning system, or at least meal ideas for stress-heavy weeks. Whether that was a 20-minute protein pasta bowl or 20-minute sheet pan meals, or even protein smoothies sometimes. Making it fast, predictable, because when your routine matches your lifestyle, consistency becomes a little bit more automatic and not forced. Number 3, identity integration. When you start shifting your mindset and actually believing that you're the woman who actually implements the behaviors to get the results, those behaviors stop feeling so difficult for you. And this is the part that creates the permanent results. Most women try to change their body while still identifying as someone who struggles with weight and their self-esteem, but your identity dictates your habits. So what I started doing was using the future self reframe. I had daily micro questions that I would ask myself. For example, if I was struggling with my nutrition on that specific day, I would ask myself, what would the stronger future version of me actually choose in this situation? What would the nourished version of me actually eat in this time? And this rewires your default behaviors without forcing discipline. When your identity shifts, everything else becomes a little bit more effortless. Your waistline ultimately tightens, your curves begin to grow, and your habits begin to stick permanently. Okay, so earlier on in the video, I did mention that you cannot spot reduce belly fat, but you can reduce your total body fat, tighten that transverse abdominis, build your glutes and delts, which ultimately will create that proportion. And that combination will equal the figure that you're actually trying to achieve. Here's the part that every woman needs to understand: the actual strategy behind how the waist actually changes. So remember, your curves stay when your protein stays high. If your protein is too low, especially during a calorie deficit, your body's gonna start to pull energy from your muscles, especially your large muscle groups like the glutes. And that's why so many women lose their curves, especially while dieting, because they're losing muscle mass, not just fat. Alright, so the visual illusion is real. A smaller looking waist is mostly about ratios, not simply just fat loss. So when you build those shoulder muscles, your upper back, and your lats, you widen the upper frame, and a wider upper frame makes that waist look smaller. Think of it like this: if the top of the hourglass widens, the middle looks tighter. And that's why women who lift upper body consistently look more hourglass shaped. So if you're tired of trying a random workouts and seeing zero results, and if you want to understand why your waist isn't responding and exactly what your metabolism actually needs, then go ahead and take the quiz, link down in the description, and I'll have it in the first pinned comment. It will show you your exact profile and the first steps that you need to take for that smaller waist while keeping your curves. And comment down below with what you're struggling with the most. Like the video if you actually found value in this, and subscribe so you don't miss another weekly training video, and I'll see you in the next one.